Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio, so today I'm going to be showing you another ridiculously good new card. I've been talking a lot about new cards lately. I've been saying many of them are incredibly good. And some of you have been saying, Ross, why all the love? Well, Pokemon keep printing new cards, so I'll make you a deal. I'm going to stop making videos about how amazing these new cards are when the Japanese Pokemon Twitter stops revealing amazing new cards. Now, unfortunately, I am still quite croaky after my long weekend casting at the International Championships, but what am I going to do? Wait a few days till my throat's feeling a bit better to bring you news of Glaceon GX? No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not my style, and if you're regular viewers, you will know that by now. But don't worry, I have lozenges. So Glaceon GX is a water Pokemon, which is kinda good in a few ways. It means you're hitting weakness against Volcanion, and hitting weakness on Volcanion is actually quite good. Solgaleo is very hyped at the moment. Lots of metal Pokemon are getting quite good. That makes Volcanion better. You're hitting weakness, that's pretty nice. You gain Aqua Patch, which allows you to accelerate energy from the discard to bench water Pokemon, and you've got Brooklet Hill, which allows you to search for water Pokemon, pop them onto your bench, although it should be mentioned that Glaceon itself evolves from Eevee, but that's okay. And actually, speaking of which, it's better to evolve from Eevee than a water Pokemon because we've got the Energy Evolution Eevee, which means that if you attach a water energy to Eevee, you can then search your deck, grab yourself a Glaceon, and then evolve up so you can have a turn 1 Glaceon. And when we look at the ability in a moment, you're going to realise how good that is. Weakness to metal is expected because it is of course an ice type in the games, which means it gets printed as a water type with a metal weakness. And the weakness to metal is actually a little bit of a pain because it means that all these Pokemon like Celesteela that are getting quite a lot of hype at the moment will be able to get a one-hit KO, which is a bit of an issue. Celesteela with free energy will be hitting 180, so a Choice Band or a Down Mize will get a one-hit KO, and the new Solgaleo GX coming out does 120 for just a double colourless energy, which will get an easy one-hit KO. Retreat of 2's a bit rubbish, but the card's good enough that we're not going to care, and 200 HP is in line with Umbreon and Espeon, so I suppose that makes it quite appropriate. Now, we're going to start with the ability because, going top to bottom, that's what's first. The ability on Glaceon, it will break the game. And I mean this very literally. Glaceon will change the way we play the Pokemon trading card game. The ability, as translated by the lovely Rappelman TCG, David Hookman himself, while this Pokemon is active, your opponent's Pokemon GX and EX in the hand, field, and discard pile have no ability, except for Glaceon GX. So if both players have got a Glaceon GX, neither player has any abilities, you can't use Glaceon to turn off your opponent's Glaceon. And ladies and gentlemen, this changes everything. First of all, you've got stuff like Decidueye. Decidueye cannot use Feather Arrow if Glaceon's in the active. Now, to be fair, it's only when Glaceon is in the active, so you can always play something like a Guzma, get rid of Glaceon or at least move it to the bench, at which point you then get access to your abilities again. But are you going to have a Guzma every single turn? The answer is no. Maybe you're even going to want to play something like an Escape Rope just to move Glaceon to get access to your abilities again. But you're turning off Decidueye. You're turning off Volcanion's Steam Up, which is a big deal because that's how they get a one-hit KO. No Steam Up. It takes something like a Choice Banded Ho-Oh to get a KO there. Stuff like Zoroark. See, at the moment, Zoroark's trade is an amazing ability. We saw this when Tord Reklev won the European International Championships with Zoroark this weekend. Zoroark was everywhere. Trade, allowing you to discard a card from your hand and draw 2, is a crazy good ability. But it gets turned off by Glaceon. That is an easy way around this. What we do is we play something like Octillery or Oranguru rather than Zoroark. But the point is very simple. you've got to then change your support Pokemon. Zoroark is a GX and gets turned off by Glaceon, but Octillery and Oranguru are not GXs and therefore do not get turned off by Glaceon. If Glaceon comes around enough, this will happen. But of course there is a much, much bigger thing that Glaceon does. It stops Tapu Lele. For a long time now in the Pokemon trading card game, since Guardians Rising came out, the turn 1 play of choice for a majority of players has been turn 1 Tapu Lele, Wonder Tag for a Bridget and grab 3 basics. Well, you can't do that if there's a Glaceon active because you can't Wonder Tag. People are playing lower support accounts because you're playing 2 to 4 Tapu Lele and 4 Ultra Ball to search out a Tapu Lele. But the thing is, if you're using Glaceon, and you get a turn 1 Glaceon, because if you go first and attach a Water Energy to Eevee, turn 1 Glaceon, Floatstone to get it in the active, your opponent then, from the very first turn of the game, has no access to abilities, and that includes Tapu Lele. And yeah, maybe they've got a Guzma in hand, but then they don't get the turn 1 Bridget. Maybe they've got an escape rope in hand, or maybe they don't. And if you can get a couple of Glaceon out and nothing else, then there will be no escape rope or Guzma play. If the only thing you've got on your field is Glaceon, your opponent's EXs and GXs just don't have any abilities. Now, you could clearly play this as a deck on its own. We'll look at the attacks in a minute. But if you just wanted to play this for the ability, you could. You play an Eevee, a Glaceon, 1 or 2 Water Energy, and maybe you use one of the Oricorio. The Power Oricorio's got an ability that when you play it to your hand, you search for up to 2 basic energy and put them into your hand. So you play it down, you search for a Water Energy and something else, and then you can evolve it up straight away. Because we've got ways of searching out the energy, you don't need necessarily to be playing a water deck in order to take advantage of Glaceon. And take my word for it, Glaceon is so disruptive that people will be playing it as a tech. You don't even need necessarily to be playing Water Energy. You can always just play a 1-1 Glaceon line, leave it in the active with a Floatstone, and then just turn off your opponent's abilities until you're ready to sweep for victory. Though obviously it's better if you can actually attack. The fact that you can take decks like Volcanion and Decidueye and shut them down. The fact that we're going to make people play Octillery over Zoroark. The fact that you can make sure your opponent has no Tapu Lele on turn 1. These are literally game-changing eventualities. This is not some, oh, it's a nice tech GX and maybe... No. This is a GX which is absolutely phenomenal because it will shut your opponent's deck down. This will win games because your opponent goes, I've got a basic and a Tapu Lele and I've got nothing else. So you have nothing. There will be games won by Glaceon because your opponent sits there with a hand, can't Tapu Lele, and then just loses in a couple of turns. It could be that impactful. And that's before you just get into the whole Decidueye does nothing, etc. As a side note, I'm not sure how viable it is to play a thin line with 1 or 2 Water Energies. That's something we'll have to test. However, if you are going to do that and you're going to play Oricorio, make sure you play Fan Club and not Bridget, because Bridget puts it on the bench and you lose the ability. The attack, 90 to the active, 30 to the bench, it's Night Spear. Now, Night Spear is not as good. We've actually had 2 Pokemon with this exact attack printed recently. We've had Umbreon and we've had Kingdra. Neither have seen a huge amount of play. The reason why Darkrai was so gosh darn good is because when Darkrai was big, everyone had 180 HP. So 90 twice got a KO. 90 plus 330s got a KO, the numbers were great. We're not there anymore. This is not an attack on the level it was when Night Spear was a thing. But the thing about Glaceon is, once you've got it active, if you get it active early enough and your opponent is basically locked out of the game, you don't need much at all. You just need a competent attack. You put a Water Energy on there early on and evolve up. You add a double colourless. You do 90, maybe 120 with a choice band, and the key thing here is You are just spreading damage around while your opponent can't set up. This attack does not make Glaceon great. It didn't make Umbreon great. It didn't make Kingdra great. It doesn't make Glaceon great. But when you are locking your opponent out of the game with a ridiculous ability, and then you bring in this attack, that's what makes it great. The GX attack is actually pretty underwhelming. Same energy cost as your main attack, which is nice, you don't need any extra energy. It does 50 damage for every damage counter on the defending Pokemon. It's not great. Let's say you do 30 damage to the bench using Glaceon. They've then got 30 damage on them, so your GX attack does 150, 50 times 30, and then they're on 180 total. 30 is relevant because that's what your main attack will do to the bench. It's not particularly great. It's one of the most underwhelming GX attacks we've seen. They really need 4 damage counters on them for this to be relevant, and you're generally doing 3. It's fine, it'll get some use, it'll win some games, but it's not particularly good. But let me be incredibly clear about this. The ability shuts down entire decks. The ability makes people play Octillery because Zoroark isn't safe. I'm not saying that will happen, I'm saying some people should be making that decision. And it turns off turn 1 Tapu Lele. As you're playing at tournaments in PTCGO, at League, I want you to pay attention over the next couple of weeks. How many times do you see people with a turn 1 Tapu Lele play? How many times do you have to turn 1 Lele because you don't have another supporter in hand? You can go first, get a Glaceon active because of the Energy Evolution Eevee, and then your opponent has no Bridget unless they happen to start with it. They have no N unless they happen to start with it. Ladies and gentlemen, when I say that this Glaceon changes everything, I mean this Glaceon changes everything. I know I've been very enthusiastic about a bunch of cards. Luxio's amazing. Magnezone's really good. The Necrozma GXs we got were both really good. Check my videos. I promise you, these are good cards. But of all the ones we've got lately, Glaceon is probably the most impactful. And I say probably like I'm not sure. That ability is ridiculous. Oh, do you want to turn off the ability with Garbodor? Fine. Because your abilities are still turned off, so I don't really care. As long as Glaceon has a competent attack that they can use to deal some damage while shutting your deck down, it's great. And it does. Night Spear is not the amazing attack it was when Dark Explorers came out. But it doesn't need to be. Ladies and gentlemen, Glaceon, and I know I've said this a bunch of times lately and I'm sorry, it's a 5 Wossie card, it's an obvious 5 Wossie card, and I feel no shame or regret by calling it a 5 Wossie card. But as always, let me know what you think, let me know in the comments, go nuts, be nice, tell me the other uses you found for this, but turning off Tapu Lele, I mean, it's going to make the coin flip so much more impactful, which to be honest I'm not looking forward to, but you know, it's coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. Speaking of which, my Leafeon video, give me like an hour, hour and a half. That'll be online as well. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWossie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. And please leave a like. You can tell by my voice, I'm not really in a position where I should be making videos tonight, but there's new cards. What am I supposed to do? If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc., you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.